everyone, it's Melanie here with Joly Studio. I'm so glad you dropped by today. I was inspired by watercolorist Joly Poa. I'll have that down in the description below this video. She is an excellent watercolorist. She inspired me to try painting this tree with a sponge and watercolor paper. So it is just a regular household sponge. As you can see, I am wringing it out completely. And there was another watercolorist who said, hey, try to dampen your paper on both sides instead of taping it down to your surface. So I decided I'd try that as well. Now this is not saturating the paper, but you can see I've added water to the back and the front of my watercolor paper. That will help adhere it down on my glass mat. Again, all the supplies for today's card can be found in the description below this video. But let's jump into this composition. This was really a lot of fun. So I have added a little water to my palette there, as you can see, and I'm dabbing my sponge off to try to keep this really light. So when you watch other people watercolor, they make it look so effortless. It is not effortless to me. So if I inspire you to give this a try after I've been inspired, then that's what we do as artists, right? Give it a try. So the lesson I have to tell myself, even as I'm dabbing with the sponge, is to leave some white area. You see some of the most beautiful watercolors, and they've got a lot of light coming through their compositions. It's not so heavy. So that's a learning curve for me. But anyway, this was a lot of fun. I started with the lighter color, as you can see, working down towards darker at the bottom of my tree. Just putting in all those wonderful fall colors. And by the way, as you'll notice from my videos, I am holding on to fall as long as possible. I don't know about you, but I get really frustrated when I see Christmas decorations coming out around the time school starts. You know, the end of summer, early September. That is too early for Christmas. And though I love the true meaning of Christmas, I think it has its time and its place in December. And so somehow Halloween and Thanksgiving get glossed over just because of all the decorations surrounding Christmas. So that's why I am hanging on to fall during the fall season. Let each season be in its own time. That's what my mantra is. Okay, back to our painting here. You can see how the darker portions of my tree at the bottom kind of anchor it. And by adding a little more darkness down there, I'm going to bring it from being a flat on the page tree to a little more three-dimensional. At least that's my intention. I've added some branches throughout the tree. I've tried to leave some light in the trunk of my tree, and then I'm just going to come back and blend a little bit here and there. Again, having to tell myself, stop, let it be, go on to something else. So with my brush, I'm just going to add in a few little leaves. It's the idea of things, right? And watercolor, it doesn't have to be precise. It's the idea of leaves along the bottom and a few defined leaves within the tree. That's it. Okay, so it's looking okay. Now, I brought over a Momenta stamp set because I could leave it like it is, but of course I wanted to add a little wheelbarrow and a rake, and I'm going to overlap the trunk with these two items. Now in retrospect, I could have done this in a gray or a dark brown maybe, but I chose to use black just to try to pull the details out. And again, this is my Tonic Studio stamping platform, comes in very handy. I've got it on the clear side for clear stamps, and I'll get that put down. Now you can see this is going to look fairly stark, but that's okay. I plan on adding a little bit of color to that wheelbarrow just to bring the color down in this composition. So I'm not going to worry about that overly much. I'm using that same brown to add a little bit of ground behind the wheelbarrow and the rake. Give our tree something to sit on. And then I am just using the same colors in my palette here to add to the wheelbarrow. Now this is a black. Now again, I'm trying to lighten up some areas so that it looks more three-dimensional and not flat. And then by just pulling the color out, I get a gray tone for those spokes and the frame of my little wheelbarrow. This is still black, but with additional water. And then I'm going to simply wet the body of the wheelbarrow and drop in some of this red. Let that kind of spread a little bit on its own, and then drop in a little more deeper color along the bottom and in the crevices where there would naturally be a shadow. So it's very, very simple watercolor painting right here. And again, you don't have to add the stamped images. I just felt like I needed something else for this week's card. So that's why I added my stamps. Add a little bit of shadow here. Trying to get that rake and my wheelbarrow to come to life just a little bit. Not doing overly much. This is that same brown, and you can see when it dries, it's drying back quite a bit lighter, so just play with this. Whatever appeals to you the most. Did you ever get out and rake leaves? I always had to get out and rake leaves, and I don't know why. I don't see anybody raking leaves anymore, but we had to get out and rake leaves and then jump in them and then put them in bags, and they would haul them off, and now people compost them, put them in the garden, leave them on the ground, whatever. Seems like life's a lot simpler. Maybe people are more busy. I don't know. Anyway, you can see I've added a few leaves here on the ground using that same sponging technique and the same colors. And then I'm trying to blend the handle of that rake up into the tree as well. So I just sponged over the top of the rake, which I think helps a little bit. And then I've brought over just a little bit of blue, and I'm really dabbing that off on my paper towel because I just want a hint of the sky. And again, this will dry back lighter. So the only tip I have about the sky that I also learned from watching other people do watercolor is you don't want to bring the sky all the way down to that hill that we built between the ground and the wheelbarrow there. Just bring it slightly under the leaves. And I also dabbed a little bit into the center of the tree just to bring some of that blue sky out. Now I'm going back and adding a little more dark shading to the bottom of my tree to kind of get that to look more three-dimensional. And I'll add just a dab on that trunk where naturally it would be in a little bit of shadow from the leaves. Just adding a little depth and dimension with some shading here. And we are about done with this card. Hey, I was inspired to try this sponging technique. I hope you get inspired to try it, and that's what we do, is share with one another. If you get inspired to try this, I would be happy as a clam. Let me know. Drop me a comment. Hey, and if you're new to the channel, feel free to become a subscriber. You never know what I'm going to try next week. Thank you so much for dropping by. I hope you have a wonderful day creating something great, and happy crafting, everyone.